the very first English settlement here in North America. Hey everybody, this is Russ from Family Tree Nuts, and I'm here at the earthworks of Fort Raleigh on Roanoke Island here on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. In the 1580s, Queen Elizabeth I decided that the English needed a colony. They needed to do some exploration in North America. The Spanish had pretty much already made many settlements in South America and in the Caribbean, so they figured that they better get into the game. So Queen Elizabeth hired Sir Walter Raleigh, a local entrepreneur and businessman, to head up an organization to lead for the first colony in North America. In 1584, Sir Walter Raleigh hired a couple of men to lead an expedition by the name of Philip Armidas and Arthur Barlow, and the men reported back that they had found a place that would be a great settlement here, Roanoke Island. There's plenty of places to grow food, plenty of fresh water sources, access to the sea. So Sir Walter Raleigh organized an organization that set out in 1585 to set up the first colony. This was a 600-man expedition with 7 ships to come here and set up the colony, but the group met a lot of hardships. They lost a couple of ships along the way, lost a lot of their supplies, and by the time that they reached Roanoke Island, they only left behind about a 100-man group to set up the first colony here. The men stayed here, but they had very low supplies, and about a year later, Sir Francis Drake had passed through here. He had been doing some privateering into Spanish ports, making some raids on Spanish ships, and had been very successful, but he thought that he would stop in on the colony and see how they were doing. The men were in such dispirits, that so sad and disappointed, the rations were really low. They convinced Sir Francis Drake to take them back to England. And they did go back to England and took a couple of Native Americans with them, including Manio, which is a town here on Roanoke Island. But the group left a 15-man party here at the fort, basically to protect the claim for England that was here. In 1587, Sir Walter Raleigh organized the second group to come and colonize North America, and this time it was about 114 or so men, women, and children that were going to set up a colony. They were going to set up the colony in the Chesapeake Bay, a little bit north of here in modern-day Virginia. They really felt that just a little bit further past that colony was the Pacific Ocean. Now, let's think about that for a minute. We know the way that the world and North America is shaped today, but the folks there in the 1580s thought that just a little bit further was the Pacific Ocean, access to Asia, access to the spices and things that were out there. They thought that they were in India as where they were at, and which is why they named the Native Americans Indians. That's another story, of course. But I thought that was really interesting that they really wanted to set up that it was a race to get access to the Pacific Ocean. And it's really neat to think about the way that people think at different times throughout history. So in 1587, 114 men, women, and children traveled here, and led by Governor White. It was actually his daughter, Eleanor White Dare, and her husband, Ananias Dare. Eleanor was with child, and shortly after they settled here, the very first English child born in North America was born here, Virginia Dare. I'm sure you've heard of Virginia Dare. There's Dare County. There's many other things that are named for Virginia Dare. She becomes a popular member in all kinds of different organizations and societies and things like that. So the very first English child was born right here in 1587. Shortly thereafter the colony was created, Governor White went back to England to gather some supplies, and he anticipated on coming immediately back to the colony, but there was some crazy stuff that was going on when he got back there. England had just entered into a war on Spain. The Spanish Armada was on its way up to England to destroy it, but basically Governor White could not get the ships and the supplies back to resupply the colony. And believe it or not, it took 3 years before he was able to get a sponsor, get a ship, get supplies out of England and make an attempt to come back here to the colony. When Governor White with the supplies arrived back here at the fort, he found that it was totally abandoned. There was nobody here. The structures were still here. There was remnants of them being here, but none of the people were here. The group had decided to leave some cryptic messages just in case something happened to kind of let everybody know where they went. So he was convinced that the group had moved south because on 2 trees, they found one tree that said C-R-O, Crow, and they found on another tree that said Croatoan written on there. So we know that there was Native American tribe just south of here that was more friendly to the English than the local ones were with the first group of settlers that were here. So he really thought that the group left there and went with those Indians down there. He immediately got back on the ship, started to head out to the south to try to find the colony, but one of the ship's anchors broke, and one of the two, and the captain basically said they had to return back to England in order to make the repairs. Governor White did convince them to go to the Caribbean, resupply, and he could get a ride back here for some supplies, but they blew off course, ran into more difficulties, ended up in the Azore Islands, had to take on water, and then more problems, and they ended up having to go on into England. So he never was able to find out what happened to the colony that he set up here. Today it's full of myths, of lore, the Lost Colony of Roanoke. I'm sure you've heard of that. There's been lots of TV shows lately on the History Channel or Discovery Channel of what happened to the original group that was here. Some think they were wiped out by the Native Americans. Some thinks they assimilated with the Native Americans. Some says they just all died of some disease. We'll never know probably what exactly happened here, but it is a interesting mystery to learn about. And it is a forgotten colony too, because it was another 17 years later in 1607 where they founded Jamestown. You know that story, Pocahontas and John Smith and all that, which was the first permanent English settlement here in North America. And then in 1620, the Pilgrims in Plymouth. But this particular spot right here was the very first. Today, the area is a national park. It does have the famous outdoor drama that has been going on, I think, since 1937. Had some famous people in that outdoor drama. Even was Andy Griffith, I think, played the role of Sir Walter Raleigh for a time. But anyway, I wanted to take you to this neat spot right here that was the site of the first English settlement in all of North America. We can't go further back for most of us that are Anglo-Saxon, Northern European ancestry. We can't go back much further than this right here in our history here in North America. Obviously, there's probably not any of us that are descendants of that original group because we don't know what happened to them. Maybe we are. Be an interesting thing to find out someday. But anyway, wanted to take you to this awesome spot, Fort Raleigh, site of the first English settlement in all of North America. And hey, remember, family tree nuts. Let our nuts find the nuts in your family tree. Like what you see? Make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to click the little bell so you get notifications as to when we post new videos. And you can find out more about us and contact us at familytreenuts.org.